Welcome to Profit in Frames, your home for the financial autopsy of horror and psychological thrillers. Tonight, we're dissecting another nightmare, carving into the movie budget, the box office numbers, and the shocking profit behind the fear. Let's begin the operation.
Before we begin the analysis, let's address the question everyone's asking. For those of you wondering where to watch The Conjuring 2013, the primary place to stream it right now is on Max. Now, if you're not subscribed to that service and still need to know where to watch this movie, it's also widely available for rent or purchase on platforms like Apple TV and Amazon Prime Video. So to be perfectly clear, the easiest answer for where to watch The Conjuring 2013 is to stream it directly on Max. Today, we are descending into the shadows to analyze a film that didn't just become one of the most successful horror movies of the 21st century. It became a genre-defining classic that launched a multi-billion-dollar cinematic universe from the humblest of beginnings. We are, of course, talking about one of the most influential box office hits of the last decade. The classic hit The Conjuring 2013, starring the masterful Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren and the brilliant Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren, and directed by the modern maestro of terror, James Wan, best known for architecting the Saw and Insidious franchises. Audiences experienced a landmark release from the legendary studio New Line Cinema. Even more than a decade later, The Conjuring 2013 is still the benchmark against which other supernatural horror films are measured. It's constantly compared to other major films and franchises, from its spiritual predecessor Insidious to timeless movies like The Exorcist, showing its lasting and profound impact on global cinema and its continued high demand on streaming platforms like Netflix, Disney+, HBO, and Amazon Prime. When The Conjuring 2013 first appeared on the slate of new movie releases, it arrived in a summer season typically dominated by superhero blockbusters and animated family films. Yet what James Wan and New Line Cinema delivered was something that movie lovers and dedicated film enthusiasts were profoundly hungry for: a return to character-driven, atmospheric horror. This was not just another collection of jump scares. It was a meticulously crafted cinematic masterpiece of tension and dread. The story, famously based on a true story, introduces us to Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren and Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren, two real-life paranormal investigators. They are called upon to help the Perron family, led by the incredible Lily Taylor as Carolyn Perron and the relatable Ron Livingston as Roger Perron, who are being terrorized by a malevolent presence in their new Rhode Island farmhouse. The investigation that follows becomes the most terrifying and dangerous case of their careers. The immense success of The Conjuring 2013 rests squarely on the shoulders of these impeccable performances. Patrick Wilson, who had already proven his horror bona fides with James Wan in Insidious, brings a grounded determination to Ed Warren. In his hands, Ed is not a caricature, but a man of deep faith and unwavering resolve. Paired with him, Vera Farmiga delivers a powerhouse performance as Lorraine Warren, beautifully conveying the emotional and spiritual toll of her clairvoyant gifts. Their on-screen chemistry is the anchor of the film and the entire universe that followed. The directorial vision of James Wan cannot be overstated. By 2013, he was already a horror icon. With Saw, he proved he could create a high-concept, low-budget cultural phenomenon. With Insidious, he demonstrated his unparalleled skill in building unbearable suspense. In The Conjuring 2013, Wan synthesized these talents, creating a film that felt both like a loving homage to the classic movies and retro movies of the 1970s and a completely fresh, modern horror experience. His distinctive camera work and his patient, methodical pacing are why this film is frequently cited in movie ranking lists as one of the all-time great movies of the horror genre. The studio behind the film, New Line Cinema, has a rich history with horror, famously earning the nickname The House That Freddy Built after the success of A Nightmare on Elm Street. They understood the genre's potential, and by placing their trust in James Wan's vision for The Conjuring 2013, they made a strategic decision that would prove to be one of the most profitable in their history, rivaling the franchise-building success of competitive studios like Universal or Paramount. The film's marketing campaign became a textbook example of modern promotion, creating viral movie moments that fueled organic hype. The iconic trailer, with its terrifying hide-and-clap game, became one of those iconic movie scenes that sparked widespread movie spoilers discussion and countless audience reactions videos online. This groundswell of fan engagement with movies elevated The Conjuring 2013 from just another horror film into a must-watch movie and a true cultural event, solidifying its place as one of the great Hollywood hits of its time. Now, while the masterful scares and compelling characters are what movie fans rightfully celebrate, the story that unfolded on the studio's financial statements is, in its own way, just as dramatic and far more impactful on the industry. From an investor's viewpoint, the financial architecture of The Conjuring 2013 is nothing short of a masterclass in risk management and profit maximization. The entire financial narrative begins with the most critical number in any film production: the production budget. The Conjuring 2013 was produced for an estimated $20 million. Let's pause to fully appreciate that figure. In the summer of 2013, it was sharing multiplex space with behemoths like Man of Steel, which had a budget of over $225 million, and Iron Man 3, with a budget of $200 million. For a major studio like Warner Bros., the distributor for New Line Cinema, a $20 million production cost is an incredibly conservative, almost negligible investment. This lean budget was the cornerstone of the film's financial strategy, as it immediately and dramatically lowered the bar for profitability. The financing structure was equally straightforward. This was a fully studio-financed production. New Line Cinema and its parent company, Warner Bros., shouldered the entire cost, meaning they absorbed all the initial risk. However, this also meant they were positioned to capture every single dollar of profit, with no need to share returns with co-producers or outside equity investors. This clean structure ensured that the studio's equity stake valuation in the project was absolute and undiluted from day one. With a contained budget and a clear ownership structure, the studio's next crucial step was to establish a preliminary global gross forecast. Before a single ticket was sold, analysts and executives would have projected the film's potential earnings. Based on comparable R-rated horror films of the era, like its predecessor Insidious, which earned just under $100 million worldwide, a reasonable and even optimistic global gross forecast for The Conjuring 2013 would likely have been in the $80 million to $120 million range. Performance at this level would have already represented a fantastic success. The primary monetization streams were the traditional routes: domestic and international theatrical box office, followed by home video sales, and then lucrative television and streaming licensing deals. Even at the most conservative end of that forecast, say $90 million, the film would have easily turned a profit and delivered a very healthy ROI, return on investment. For the studio executives, this initial forecast made their equity stake valuation in The Conjuring 2013 look like a secure, intelligent, and low-risk deployment of capital. Then the movie was released, and the cautious financial models were set ablaze by a firestorm of audience enthusiasm and critical acclaim. The Conjuring 2013 did not merely meet its global gross forecast. It completely and utterly shattered it. The film roared to life at the box office, ultimately earning a staggering $320 million worldwide. This extraordinary outcome fundamentally rewrote the entire financial story of the film. In an instant, the studio's equity stake valuation in this modest $20 million project transformed. It was no longer just a profitable movie. It was now the foundational pillar of a potential billion-dollar franchise. Profitability metrics for this single film became legendary within the halls of Hollywood. To put that in perspective, after the theaters take their typical 50% cut, the $320 million gross translates to approximately $160 million in theatrical revenue flowing back to the studio. After factoring in the $20 million production budget and an estimated marketing spend of around $40 million, the studio was looking at a net profit exceeding $100 million from the theatrical run alone. This represents an astronomical ROI, return on investment, a figure that is exceedingly rare for any film, let alone one from a genre often seen as niche. This phenomenal success created a powerful ripple effect that amplified the film's value across all its subsequent monetization streams, further inflating its long-term equity stake valuation. The incredible box office numbers meant the studio could negotiate from a position of immense strength for its streaming and television rights. A film that becomes a cultural touchstone like The Conjuring 2013 commands a premium price in the ancillary markets. Networks and burgeoning streaming platforms were eager to pay top dollar to feature it in their libraries, generating years of passive, high-margin revenue. But the true game-changing impact on the equity stake valuation was not just the profit from this one film. It was the birth of an intellectual property. The film's narrative, with its tantalizing glimpse into the Warrens' artifact room, was a deliberate and brilliant act of world-building. This masterstroke shifted the global gross forecast from a single-film calculation to a long-term, multi-picture projection. Suddenly, the initial $20 million investment was no longer just the cost of one movie. It was the seed capital for an entire cinematic universe. The ROI, return on investment, was no longer just about the profits of The Conjuring 2013. It was about the billions of dollars that The Nun, Annabelle, and subsequent sequels would generate. The equity stake valuation was no longer tied to a single asset but to a sprawling and highly lucrative franchise, making it one of the most successful and intelligent investments in modern studio history. Horror film lives or dies on the strength of its performances. If the audience doesn't believe the fear in the actors' eyes, the illusion shatters and the scares fall flat. This is where The Conjuring 2013 truly excelled, assembling a pitch-perfect cast that grounded its supernatural terror in raw human emotion. For countless movie lovers and cinema fans, the ensemble of The Conjuring is a huge reason why it remains one of the most rewatchable movies in the genre. At the heart of this timeless movie are its two leads, the actors who would become the anchor of a billion-dollar universe. Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren and Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren. Their portrayal of the real-life paranormal investigators is widely considered one of the great pairings in modern horror, transforming what could have been simple archetypes into fully realized, compelling characters. Patrick Wilson's casting as Ed Warren was a stroke of genius by director James Wan and the studio New Line Cinema. Wilson had already established himself as a horror leading man in Wan's previous hit movie, Insidious. That film, which you can find on streaming platforms like Max, proved that Wilson could play the concerned, protective husband and father with a gripping authenticity. In The Conjuring, he perfects that persona. As Ed Warren, he isn't a swashbuckling hero. He's a steadfast, deeply faithful man whose strength comes from his conviction. Patrick Wilson's performance makes the audience believe in the unbelievable. Film enthusiasts often point to his extensive actor filmography, which includes roles in major blockbuster movies like Watchmen and Aquaman, as evidence of his versatility. But it's his work in horror that has made him a fan favorite. Fans who follow casting news know that his collaboration with James Wan is one of the most fruitful in the genre, and his performance as Ed Warren in The Conjuring is arguably the pinnacle of that partnership. It's a role that could easily rival the quiet intensity of Ethan Hawke's work in Sinister, another benchmark for father figures in horror. Complementing Wilson's steadfastness is the luminous performance of Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren. Before The Conjuring, Farmiga was best known for her prestige work, earning an Oscar nomination for Up in the Air and appearing in all-time great movies like Martin Scorsese's The Departed. Her involvement lent an immediate layer of credibility and dramatic weight to the project. As Lorraine Warren, she is the empathetic soul of the film, a woman burdened by her clairvoyant abilities. Farmiga portrays Lorraine's vulnerability with a heartbreaking sincerity, making her terror feel palpable. When she is afraid, we are afraid. This performance is a key piece of movie trivia for fans. Farmiga famously did extensive research, including speaking with the real Lorraine Warren, to prepare for the role. Her work in The Conjuring became so iconic that it's often listed among the best movies of the cast. Movie fans who enjoyed her nuanced performance here should definitely check out her chilling work in the series Bates Motel, available on Peacock, which further showcases her incredible talent for complex psychological roles. Of course, the Warrens are only half of the story. The film's terror is filtered through the experiences of the Perron family, and the actors portraying them were just as crucial to the film's success. Lili Taylor's turn as the tormented matriarch, Carolyn Perron, is nothing short of phenomenal. Taylor was already a respected actress with a background in the genre, having starred in the 1999 cult classic The Haunting. In The Conjuring, she delivers a physically and emotionally demanding performance that anchors the entire haunting. Her descent from a hopeful mother to a woman possessed is utterly convincing and terrifying. Alongside her is Ron Livingston as Roger Perron, the skeptical but loving husband. Livingston, beloved for comedies like Office Space, brings a relatable everyman quality to the role, making the family's plight feel incredibly grounded. The strategic casting by New Line Cinema of these two respected, veteran actors ensured that the family at the center of the horror felt real, which made the supernatural threat all the more terrifying. The chemistry between Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren and Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren, combined with the believable terror of Lili Taylor as Carolyn Perron and the rest of the family, is the magic ingredient that makes The Conjuring not just a scary movie, but a truly great one. It's why this classic movie continues to be a benchmark for the genre and a frequent topic in movie breakdowns and discussions among fan-favorite movies. From a financial analyst's perspective, the casting strategy for The Conjuring was a masterstroke of economic efficiency and strategic foresight, built around one of the smartest tools in a studio's arsenal: back-end participation. When a studio is working with a lean $20 million budget, every dollar counts. Allocating a significant portion of that budget to massive upfront actor salaries for A-list stars would have been impossible. Instead, New Line Cinema employed a far more sophisticated compensation model that minimized upfront costs, reduced financial risk, and brilliantly aligned the interests of the talent with the success of the film. This entire approach revolved around the powerful concept of back-end participation. So what exactly is back-end participation? In simple terms, it's a deal where an actor agrees to take a smaller than usual upfront salary in exchange for a percentage of the film's profits. This is a powerful lever in any profitability analysis. For The Conjuring, the upfront actor salaries for leads like Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga were likely modest for performers of their caliber. Based on industry benchmarks for a $20 million film, their initial paychecks might have been in the estimated range of $500,000 to $1 million each. While a significant sum, it's a fraction of what a major blockbuster star would command. This is where the magic of back-end participation comes in. The actors and their agents would have negotiated for points on the back end, meaning they would receive a share of the revenue once the film became profitable. This structure dramatically lowers the initial production budget, allowing more funds to be allocated to on-screen value like production design, cinematography, and effects. This model is a calculated gamble that directly addresses casting risk. From the studio's point of view, if the film underperforms or fails at the box office, their financial exposure is significantly limited. They haven't spent millions on upfront salaries for a movie that didn't connect with audiences. The risk is shared with the talent. However, if the film becomes a hit as The Conjuring most certainly did, everyone reaps the rewards. The actors' agents would have likely structured these back-end participation deals to kick in after the studio recouped its production and marketing costs. Once that threshold was crossed, a portion of every dollar earned flowed to the key talent. Given the film's massive $320 million global gross, the back-end payouts for Wilson and Farmiga would have dwarfed their initial salaries, likely running into the millions of dollars. This is why the strategy is so brilliant. The studio only pays out huge sums of money when they are already making a fortune. It's a win-win scenario that transforms a fixed cost into a variable one tied directly to success. The ultimate benefit of this approach can be measured by a key metric, star power ROI. While Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga weren't Tom Cruise-level stars demanding $20 million up front, they were highly respected, critically acclaimed actors who brought a level of prestige and credibility to the project. Securing them with a deal centered on back-end participation provided an incredible return on investment. The studio got the talent they needed to make the film a critical success without crippling the budget. The performances elevated the material, which in turn drove the incredible box office numbers. That box office success then triggered the back-end payouts. In essence, the studio paid a premium for their talent only after that talent had proven its value in the marketplace. This is the definition of a high star power ROI. This intelligent financial maneuvering is a core reason why the film's overall profitability analysis is so astoundingly positive. By leveraging back-end participation, New Line Cinema minimized its casting risk, maximized its on-screen quality, and created a compensation structure where the actors became true partners in the film's journey. This smart, incentive-aligned casting strategy didn't just help make one successful film. It laid the financial groundwork for a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Every truly great horror film is built on the foundation of a compelling story. While jump scares can startle you, it's the narrative that gets under your skin and stays with you long after the credits roll. With The Conjuring 2013, director James Wan and screenwriters Chad and Carrie Hayes crafted a story that was so effective, so terrifyingly grounded, that it didn't just create a hit movie, it launched an empire. A huge part of that success is the film's brilliant use of its based on a true story hook, which makes every creak of the floorboards and every shadowy figure feel chillingly possible. Today we're doing a deep dive into the narrative engine of this modern classic, offering a complete story breakdown, exploring major movie themes, and finally delivering a definitive The Conjuring ending explained. Let's begin with a comprehensive The Conjuring plot summary. The film's narrative breakdown follows a classic, expertly paced three-act structure. Act 1 introduces us to the Perron family, Carolyn, Roger, and their 5 daughters as they move into a dilapidated farmhouse in Rhode Island. This is the infestation stage, where the supernatural occurrences are subtle but deeply unsettling. Clocks stopping at 3:07 a.m., birds flying into the house, and the youngest daughter, April, speaking to an imaginary friend named Rory. The screenplay analysis here is key. The writers masterfully build a sense of escalating dread without relying on cheap scares. They make us care about the Perron family, thanks to the deeply human performances from Lily Taylor and Ron Livingston, so when the terror ramps up, we are completely invested in their survival. Act 2 begins when the Perrons, now desperate, seek the help of Ed and Lorraine Warren. This is the oppression stage, where the entity begins to target the family directly. Warren's investigation provides the core of the story breakdown, uncovering the horrifying history of the property. They learn that the land was once owned by a woman named Bathsheba Sherman, a Satanist who sacrificed her infant child to the devil and cursed anyone who would ever try to take her land. The brilliance of the screenplay analysis here lies in how it weaves exposition with terror. We learn about Bathsheba's evil not through a dry history lesson, but through Lorraine's terrifying visions and the escalating physical attacks on the family. This section of The Conjuring is filled with iconic movie scenes like the hide-and-clap game and the wardrobe scare, moments that sparked massive fan engagement with movies and became instant viral clips. This leads us to the climactic third act and the part that everyone searches for, The Conjuring ending explained. The entity, revealed to be Bathsheba's spirit, fully possesses Carolyn, the mother. The Warrens realize they need to perform an exorcism, but they are waiting for authorization from the Vatican. In a thrilling race against time, as Carolyn is about to harm her own daughter, Ed Warren makes the fateful decision to perform the exorcism himself. Now for the full spoilers. The exorcism is brutal and violent, but the twist ending, if you can call it that, is not supernatural. It's emotional. Ed realizes that the only way to break Bathsheba's hold is to force Carolyn to remember her most powerful, cherished memory. Her family, by reminding her of her love for her children, they are able to expel the demon. The core movie themes of faith and the power of family triumph over evil. The ending is not a flashy battle, but an intimate, emotional victory, which makes it all the more powerful. Now, let's talk about The Conjuring fan theories and franchise-level storytelling. The most significant element is the film's opening scene featuring the Annabelle doll. At the time, it seemed like a creepy prologue, a standalone case to establish the Warrens' credentials. But in hindsight, this was a genius move of foreshadowing, the first seed planted for a massive cinematic universe. This scene alone spawned countless The Conjuring fan theories about other cursed objects in the Warrens' artifact room. And what about the Conjuring post-credit scene? Interestingly, there isn't one. The film predated the Marvel-style post-credit scene becoming a standard blockbuster requirement. But in a way, the Annabelle opening was the post-credit scene, placed at the beginning. It was a direct signal to the audience that the world of The Conjuring was much larger than just one haunting, setting the stage for the sequels and spin-offs that were to come. From a creative standpoint, the story of The Conjuring is a masterwork of horror. But from an investor's perspective, it is a meticulously designed financial asset, engineered for maximum return and long-term value. The narrative wasn't just written to scare audiences, it was constructed to build a brand. This is where we move beyond plot points and into profitability analysis, looking at how the story itself became the cornerstone of the entire franchise's immense financial success, focusing on its franchise IP worth and its potential for content monetization. It all starts with the script development cost. For an original screenplay, especially one that launches a franchise, studios can spend millions. However, The Conjuring had a unique advantage. It was based on real events. This dramatically lowered the initial ideation costs. The primary upfront investment wasn't in creating a world from scratch, but in acquiring the life rights to the Warrens' case files. Based on industry benchmarks for such deals, securing these rights could have cost an estimated $250,000 to $500,000. Following that, the fee for the screenwriters, Chad and Carrie Hayes, would likely have been in the mid to high six figures, perhaps in the range of $500,000 to $1 million, given their experience. So the all-in script development cost was likely under $1.5 million. This is an incredibly efficient use of capital for a screenplay that would ultimately generate billions in revenue, resulting in a phenomenal story development ROI. The strategic spending directly contributed to the initial, and now massive, franchise IP worth. Next, we must analyze the creative risk. Every story decision carries financial implications. The R rating was a significant risk, as it immediately cut out the under-17 audience. The film's slow burn, atmospheric pacing was another gamble in a market saturated with faster-paced horror. From a financial standpoint, the most significant risk was the based on a true story claim, which could have invited lawsuits or public skepticism that could have damaged the film's credibility. However, the studio calculated the risk-return ratio perfectly. The potential return of having a unique, terrifying marketing hook far outweighed the risks. The film's quality, Wan's direction, and the stellar performances mitigated the creative risks associated with pacing and tone. The risk-return ratio on this project was, in retrospect, one of the best in modern Hollywood history, a downside capped by the low budget, with an upside that proved to be virtually unlimited. This brings us to the story's sequel potential score, which we would rate as a resounding high 9/10. This score is not just a creative assessment, it's a financial metric that directly impacts the IP valuation. The story was brilliantly engineered for franchise expansion. Firstly, the main characters, Ed and Lorraine Warren, are episodic by nature. Their entire career consists of a series of distinct cases, providing an endless well of sequel material. Secondly, and most importantly, the script introduced the concept of the Warrens' artifact room. This was not just a clever piece of set dressing, it was a narrative incubator for spin-offs. Annabelle doll, the music box, the samurai armor, each item was a potential movie, a new stream of content monetization. This one-story element transformed the franchise IP worth from a linear series into a sprawling, interconnected universe. This narrative choice single-handedly elevated the long-term franchise equity valuation of the entire property. Ultimately, the story of The Conjuring serves as a perfect case study in how a well-crafted narrative becomes a powerful engine for content monetization. The screenplay provided multiple avenues to generate revenue far beyond the initial box office. The high sequel potential score justified immediate investment in sequels. The artifact room created a pipeline for lower-budget spin-offs, diversifying the product line and mitigating risk. This intricate world-building increased the IP valuation, making the brand attractive for merchandise, theme park attractions, and other licensing deals. Every narrative choice was implicitly tied to building the long-term franchise equity valuation. The initial investment in the script didn't just buy a movie, it bought a universe. That is the true financial genius of The Conjuring story. It was a creative triumph that doubled as one of the smartest and most profitable content strategies of the century. In this section, we're exploring the visual language of The Conjuring 2013, the very fabric of the nightmare that James Wan and his team wove for audiences. For movie lovers, the look and feel of a film are just as important as the story, and The Conjuring is a masterclass in cinematic storytelling. In an era dominated by blockbuster visuals and overwhelming CGI, this film made a bold and terrifying choice. It looked inward, focusing on atmosphere, tension, and what you don't see. The film's visual style is one of the key reasons it has become such a fan-favorite movie, a benchmark for modern horror that feels both timeless and deeply unsettling. The man tasked with capturing this dread on camera was the brilliant director of photography, John R. Leonetti. His work on The Conjuring is a perfect example of cinematic excellence. Demonstration of how cinematography can be the most powerful tool in a horror director's arsenal. Collaborating closely with James Wan, Leonetti crafted a distinct visual style that intentionally mimics the film aesthetics of 1970s horror classics like The Exorcist. This wasn't just a stylistic choice, it was a psychological one. The muted color palette, the grainy texture, and the deliberate lighting design all worked to ground the film in a sense of gritty reality, making the supernatural events feel all the more plausible and terrifying. Production design played a massive role here as well, with the team meticulously recreating a 1970s home at the primary filming locations in North Carolina. Every detail from the wallpaper to the appliances adds to the authentic, lived-in feel that makes the haunting so invasive. What truly sets the cinematography of The Conjuring apart is its masterful use of camera movement. James Wan is famous for his long, fluid takes, and this film is filled with them. The camera isn't static. It glides through the Perrin house like another spectral entity, a silent observer to the family's terror. This technique is on full display in several memorable scenes. Think of the iconic hide-and-clap sequence. The camera follows the characters through the darkened house, building an unbearable amount of tension without a single cut. This type of cinematic storytelling traps the audience in the moment, denying them the psychological release of a cutaway. You can find detailed behind-the-scenes featurettes that show the complex choreography required to pull off these shots, a testament to the technical skill involved. Now let's talk about the visual effects and CGI. In a modern horror film, you'd expect a significant number of VFX scenes, but The Conjuring's approach to visual effects is one of elegant restraint. A detailed CGI breakdown of this film would be surprisingly short. Instead of relying on digital monsters, the filmmakers prioritized practical effects and in-camera tricks. The scene where the sheet blows off a ghost in the laundry room is a perfect example. It's a simple, practical effect that is infinitely more chilling than a computer-generated apparition would have been. The limited use of CGI is subtle and supportive, often used to erase wires, enhance shadows, or add a ghostly transparency to a figure that was practically created on set. This minimalist philosophy is central to the film's effectiveness. By grounding its scares in the real world, the visual style of The Conjuring makes the horror feel tangible, ensuring its place as a classic of the genre whose terrifying images are burned into the minds of audiences everywhere. From a filmmaking perspective, the visual strategy of The Conjuring was an artistic triumph, but from a financial and investment standpoint, it was a stroke of unparalleled genius, a textbook demonstration of fiscal discipline and strategic resource allocation. The film's visual approach is the ultimate case study in the relationship between two crucial financial themes: ROI versus visual complexity, and the long-term goal of maximizing cumulative earnings. The studio didn't just make a scary movie, they implemented a visual production model that was designed for maximum profitability from day one. Let's begin by analyzing the VFX budget. In a typical modern blockbuster, the visual effects budget can consume a massive portion of the total production cost, often ranging from 30% to as high as 50%. For a $200 million superhero film, that's a $100 million line item for CGI. For The Conjuring, with its total production budget of $20 million, the VFX budget was, by comparison, microscopic. Based on industry benchmarks and the film's reliance on practical effects, it's estimated that the total spend on visual effects was likely under $1 million, representing less than 5% of the entire budget. This is a staggering display of financial control. This decision is the very definition of optimizing for ROI versus visual complexity. The filmmakers understood that in the horror genre, expensive, complex visuals do not always equate to a better return. In fact, the opposite is often true. By keeping the visual complexity low, they kept their costs down, which meant the film needed to gross far less to become profitable. This is a prime example of brilliant capital allocation efficiency, where every dollar was spent to maximize atmospheric dread rather than digital spectacle. This lean approach extended throughout the entire post-production phase. The overall post-production spending was kept firmly in check. While editing and color grading were crucial for establishing the 1970s aesthetic, the real genius was in the allocation of resources. More money was likely spent on the intricate sound design, a far more cost-effective tool for generating scares than on digital enhancements. Furthermore, when the film did use digital effects, the CGI cost per minute was a fraction of the industry standard. A minute of high-end CGI for a film like Avatar or a Marvel movie can easily exceed $1 million. For the few moments in The Conjuring that required digital augmentation, the CGI cost per minute was likely in the estimated range of $100,000 to $200,000, and there were very few of these minutes. This again reinforces the core financial strategy of prioritizing high ROI versus visual complexity. The studio wasn't paying for spectacle, it was paying for surgically precise, cost-effective scares. This brings us to the long-term payoff of this strategy, the impact on cumulative earnings. The extreme profitability of the first film, made possible by its low visual spending, created a massive pool of capital for the studio. Because the initial ROI versus visual complexity was so heavily skewed in favor of ROI, the film generated profits far exceeding its budget almost immediately. This financial success did two critical things. First, it completely de-risked the idea of a sequel. The studio could greenlight The Conjuring 2 with immense confidence, knowing the financial model worked. Second, it provided the capital and the proof of concept needed to launch the spin-off films. The enormous success of the first film directly funded the expansion of the universe. This is how the initial smart spending led to exponential growth in cumulative earnings. Billions of dollars the Conjuring universe has earned can be traced directly back to the fiscal discipline demonstrated in this first film's visual production. The masterful capital allocation efficiency shown here wasn't just about making one successful movie. It was about laying a financial foundation so robust that it could support a decade of sequels and spin-offs, ensuring that the cumulative earnings from this single, visually modest film would continue to grow for years to come. The financial legacy of The Conjuring's cinematography and VFX is a powerful lesson. In the business of filmmaking, a high return doesn't always require high complexity. It requires high intelligence. In this chapter, we're tuning our ears to one of the most underrated yet powerful elements of any horror film, its music. The score and soundtrack of a horror movie are its nervous system, an invisible force that can manipulate our heart rate, heighten our fear, and transform a suspenseful scene into an unforgettable moment of pure terror. Cinematic music of The Conjuring is a masterclass in this art form, an unnerving and brilliant composition that has become as iconic as the film's visuals. For fans who love to dive deep into music-driven storytelling, the score of this film is a rich and terrifying text, filled with memorable themes and chilling orchestrations that are essential to its success. The mastermind behind this auditory nightmare is the composer Joseph Bishara. For avid horror fans, Bishara's name is synonymous with the modern horror sound. He is a frequent collaborator with director James Wan, having previously composed the terrifying, string-heavy score for Insidious. His work on The Conjuring elevated him to a new level of acclaim. Bishara's approach to the iconic score is not about creating beautiful melodies. It's about crafting sonic textures that feel inherently wrong and invasive. He uses dissonant brass, screeching strings, and percussive hits that sound less like music and more like the violent sounds of a haunting in progress. This unique style is why the official soundtrack, OST, for The Conjuring is such a popular listen for fans of the genre, a perfect example of a thematic score that functions as a standalone piece of terrifying art. Soundtrack popularity is evident in its continued streaming success on platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, where fans can relive the film's most chilling moments. One of the most iconic tracks from the soundtrack is, of course, the main theme, simply titled The Conjuring. This piece is the auditory signature of the entire franchise. Its blaring, discordant brass stabs have become instantly recognizable, a musical cue that immediately signals dread. It's the kind of memorable theme that does so much of the heavy lifting in building the film's atmosphere. The main title was also used to great effect as the trailer music, immediately setting a terrifying and serious tone for the film's marketing campaign and hooking audiences from the very first preview. Another one of the soundtrack highlights is the track Annabelle, a deceptively simple and creepy lullaby-like theme that introduces the infamous doll. This track perfectly demonstrates Bishara's ability to create fear from subtlety, a stark contrast to the aggressive main theme. The full soundtrack list showcases his incredible range, from quiet, unsettling ambient pieces to explosive orchestral assaults. A fascinating piece of trivia for fans of The Conjuring is that the composer, Joseph Bishara, isn't just the man behind the music. He's also the man behind the monster. Bishara himself physically portrayed the main antagonist, the witch Bathsheba Sherman, in the film. This unique dual role gives him an unparalleled insight into the film's horror, allowing him to score scenes from the perspective of the very entity meant to terrify us. This is a level of artistic integration that is incredibly rare and adds another layer to the soundtrack acclaim. In terms of licensed songs in the movie, James Wan made a very deliberate choice to use period-specific music sparingly, which makes the moments they do appear all the more impactful. The inclusion of songs from the 1970s helps ground the film in its time period, but the narrative is overwhelmingly driven by Bishara's original iconic score. His work on The Conjuring is a perfect example of how a composer can become a key storyteller, crafting a musical language that is as vital to the film's identity as its characters and cinematography. From a creative standpoint, Joseph Bishara's score is a triumph of horror composition, but from an investor's perspective, the soundtrack of The Conjuring is a distinct and highly efficient financial asset, meticulously designed for low upfront cost and long-term, diversified revenue generation. The music strategy for this film is a brilliant case study in how to create a valuable piece of intellectual property that generates income through two primary channels. High-value active monetization through sync licensing and long-tail passive monetization through royalty income. First, let's break down the music budget. In a major studio production, music costs can swell, especially if the film relies heavily on licensed pop songs. For context, licensing a single well-known pop song for a key scene can cost anywhere from an estimated $50,000 to over $250,000. The Conjuring strategically sidestepped this massive expense. Cost for music rights acquisition was minimal because the film almost exclusively used an original score. This decision alone saved the production millions of dollars. Primary costs were the composer fee for Joseph Bishara and the music supervisor budget. Given Bishara's existing relationship with the director and the film's modest overall budget, his fee was likely in the estimated range of $200,000 to $400,000, a very reasonable figure for a composer of his caliber on a studio feature. The music supervisor's role, which involves managing all musical elements, would have added a smaller fee. In total, the all-in music budget was likely under $500,000, representing less than 5% of the total production budget. This is an incredibly lean and efficient allocation of capital. This low initial investment created a musical asset ripe for monetization, starting with sync licensing. Sync licensing is the industry term for licensing a piece of music for use in other media, such as movie trailers, TV shows, commercials, or video games. This is an extremely lucrative, high-margin revenue stream. The main theme of The Conjuring is a perfect candidate for sync licensing. Every time another horror movie trailer wants to evoke that same sense of serious, epic dread, they can license that theme for a significant fee. A single sync licensing deal for a major trailer can command an estimated $25,000 to $100,000 or more. Because Warner Bros. Owns the rights to the score, this is almost pure profit. The theme became a powerful tool for building franchise synergy, as it was used in the marketing for subsequent sequels and spin-offs, reinforcing the brand's identity without any additional cost. This ability to reuse a core musical asset across multiple properties is a key driver of long-term franchise profitability. Beyond the upfront fees from sync licensing, the soundtrack generates a steady, continuous stream of royalty income. This is the long-tail revenue that makes a soundtrack such a valuable long-term asset. Every time the score is streamed on Spotify or Apple Music, every time the OST is sold on iTunes, and every time the film is broadcast on television, a small payment or royalty is generated and paid back to the rights holders, in this case, the studio. While a single stream generates a fraction of a cent, millions of streams over a decade add up to a significant and consistent revenue source. The album sales ROI on a purely digital release is incredibly high, as there are no manufacturing or distribution costs. This passive royalty income ensures that the initial, modest investment in the score continues to pay dividends indefinitely, contributing to the film's cumulative earnings for its entire lifetime. This dual-pronged approach, high-value, active sync licensing, and low and slow, passive royalty income, demonstrates a sophisticated monetization strategy. The studio didn't just buy a score for a movie. They invested in a versatile and enduring piece of intellectual property that continues to generate profit across multiple platforms and for years to come. So far, we've explored the story, the cast, and the filmmaking. Now we're diving into the world that exists beyond the screen, the vibrant ecosystem of fan engagement, official merchandise, and the passionate community that transformed a hit movie into a cultural phenomenon. Film's legacy is often measured not just by its box office, but by its ability to inspire creativity, conversation, and, of course, a burning desire to own a piece of the movie. The pop culture impact of The Conjuring is undeniable, and a huge part of that is the incredible world of collectibles and fan culture that has grown around it. When The Conjuring was first released, the initial wave of official merchandise was relatively modest. You had the standard movie posters and perhaps some themed apparel, but the film's explosive success and the immediate social media buzz created a ravenous demand from fans. The studio quickly realized they had something special, not just a movie, but a universe brimming with iconic characters and terrifying artifacts that were perfect for franchise collectibles. The most famous and sought-after of these is, without a doubt, the Annabelle doll. The creepy porcelain doll from the film's opening scene became an instant horror icon. This led to a huge market for high-quality replica collectibles from companies like Mezco Toys, which are now staples at fan conventions and a grail item for many collectors. This merchandise strategy is comparable to how franchises like Star Wars or the MCU turn specific props or characters into must-have items, and Annabelle is the lightsaber of the Conjuring universe. Beyond the high-end replicas, the world of the Conjuring merchandise has expanded dramatically. Today, you can find a wide range of products, from stylized action figures of Ed and Lorraine Warren by NECA to the ever-popular Funko Pop vinyls of characters like the Nun and the Crooked Man. This variety ensures that there are products available for every type of fan, from the serious collector willing to spend hundreds on limited edition releases to the casual fan who just wants a cool t-shirt. The merchandise hype is constantly reignited with each new film in the universe, with Warner Bros. Often announcing exclusive drops and new product lines to coincide with a theatrical release, keeping the fan engagement high and the brand constantly in the public eye. Fan engagement for The Conjuring goes far beyond just buying products. It's an active and creative community. Cosplay is a huge part of this. At any major comic or horror convention, you are guaranteed to see dedicated fans dressed as Ed and Lorraine Warren, a testament to the enduring popularity of the characters. This level of cosplay engagement is a sign that a property has truly connected with its audience on a deep level. The community is also incredibly active online. Platforms like Instagram and DeviantArt are filled with stunning pieces of fan art depicting scenes and characters from the films. The social media campaigns for new releases often tap into this creativity, encouraging fans to share their own content. In recent years, this has exploded onto TikTok, with fans creating videos dissecting scares, sharing theories, or even participating in viral trends inspired by the films. This organic, fan-driven marketing is priceless, creating a constant stream of social media buzz that keeps The Conjuring and its universe relevant and exciting for a new generation of horror fans. From a fan's perspective, merchandise is a way to celebrate a beloved film. From an investor's perspective, it is a high-margin, low-risk, and incredibly lucrative revenue stream that can sometimes rival the box office itself. The merchandising strategy for The Conjuring is a masterclass in leveraging intellectual property, built on two core financial pillars: the steady, passive income from licensed product royalty agreements, and the powerful organic marketing engine of fan-driven ROI. First, let's demystify the business model of licensing and royalties. For the most part, a studio like Warner Bros. Does not manufacture the toys, t-shirts, or collectibles itself. They don't own factories or manage supply chains. Instead, they license out the rights to their intellectual property, the characters, the name, the imagery, to third-party companies that specialize in making these products. In exchange for the right to use the brand, the manufacturer pays the studio a fee. This fee is the licensed product royalty, which is a percentage of the product's sales. Based on industry benchmarks, a studio typically earns a licensed product royalty rate of 8% to 15% on the wholesale price of the merchandise. This is a beautiful business model because it involves almost no operational cost or risk for the studio. They simply provide the IP and collect the checks. Now let's talk about the projected sales. Demand for the Conjuring merchandise, particularly items related to Annabelle, is immense. A high-quality one-scale Annabelle doll replica can retail for over $100. Let's run a conservative estimate. If a company like Mezco sells 100,000 units of this doll at a wholesale price of, say, $50, the total wholesale revenue is $5 million. If Warner Bros. has a 12% licensed product royalty agreement on that product, they earn $600,000 from that single item with virtually no overhead. Now expand that across the entire universe: Funko Pops, apparel, posters, and dozens of other items. The branded toy revenue alone for a franchise of this size can easily be projected to exceed tens of millions of dollars over its lifetime. For a major franchise film, the global merchandise market is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and a well-managed licensed product royalty program allows the studio to capture a significant, high-margin piece of that pie. Of course, these products don't sell themselves. This is where retail partnerships and the second core theme, fan-driven ROI, come into play. Securing shelf space at major retailers like Walmart, Target, and specialty stores like Hot Topic is crucial for maximizing sales volume. These retail partnerships are what make the merchandise accessible to a mass audience. But what creates the initial demand? It's the fans, the organic social media buzz, the cosplay at conventions, the viral trends on TikTok. All of these activities are, in essence, a massive free marketing campaign. This incredible fan-driven ROI is what makes the merchandise so profitable. The studio's marketing budget for a new line of action figures might be relatively small, but the value of thousands of fans posting unboxing videos, sharing photos of their collections, and creating fan art is immeasurable. This organic engagement creates a powerful feedback loop. The movie creates fans, the fans create hype, the hype drives merchandise sales, and the revenue from those sales through the licensed product royalty flows back to the studio, funding more movies. You can also see the potential for cross-brand monetization here. Imagine a partnership with a company like Lego to create a set of the Warrens' Artifact Room, or a video game collaboration. These are extensions of the IP that are made possible by the intense fan-driven ROI and would generate even more licensed product royalty income, further proving that in modern Hollywood, a movie is no longer just a movie. It's the start of a brand. The official trailer for The Conjuring 2013, dropping with teaser release moments that sparked massive fan buzz, set the stage for a premiere event rivaling any competitor's press tour excitement, while the social media campaign built theatrical release hype across the globe. This wasn't just a marketing campaign, it was a masterclass in psychological warfare waged on the nerves of moviegoers everywhere. A great film can fail without a great marketing strategy, and the team at Warner Bros. New Line Cinema understood that selling a horror movie is about selling a feeling. They didn't just market a film, they marketed fear itself, and in doing so, they created a cultural moment that drove millions to the box office. The campaign began, as they all do, with the movie trailer. But the trailer for The Conjuring was different. It didn't just show clips, it told a mini-story, culminating in the now legendary hide-and-clap scene. This single moment from the teaser release was a stroke of genius. It was terrifying, unique, and perfectly shareable. The social media campaign ignited as fans began posting reaction videos, memes, and GIFs of that clap, creating a wave of organic, user-generated hype that money can't buy. The movie trailer quickly racked up tens of millions of views, with comment sections filled with fans declaring they were both too scared and too excited to see the film. This initial buzz was then amplified by a strategic rollout of TV spots, each one building on the last, reinforcing the based on a true story hook and showcasing the critical acclaim the film was already receiving. As the theatrical release date of July 19, 2013 approached, the campaign kicked into high gear. The studio organized a star-studded premiere event and a comprehensive press tour with the cast and director James Wan, who eloquently spoke about his passion for classic horror, further endearing the project to genre purists. The social media campaign evolved, featuring behind-the-scenes content, interviews, and most effectively, clips of audience reactions from early screenings. Showing people screaming in terror proved to be an even more powerful endorsement than any critic's review. This strategy ensured that by the time The Conjuring had its worldwide release, it wasn't just another horror movie, it was a must-see event. The anticipation was palpable, and the film delivered on the promise of its marketing, leading to incredible word-of-mouth that sustained its box office run for weeks. Even today, long after its initial theatrical release and subsequent streaming debut on platforms like Max, the marketing moments for The Conjuring are remembered as a benchmark for how to sell a horror film to a mass audience. From a creative standpoint, the marketing campaign was a triumph. From a financial perspective, it was a masterclass in calculating risk and maximizing return. The marketing and distribution of a film are where the real big money bets are made, often costing as much or more than the film itself. The success of this phase is measured by two core metrics: the size and scope of the P&A budget, which represents the investment, and the ultimate marketing spend ROI, which represents the profit. Let's first define the P&A budget. P&A stands for prints and advertising, and it encompasses all the costs associated with marketing the film and distributing it to theaters. For a major studio release, this is a colossal expense. Based on industry benchmarks for a high-profile summer release in 2013, the estimated P&A budget for The Conjuring would have likely been in the range of $30 million to $40 million. While significant, this was still a very disciplined spend compared to its summer competitors. For example, Disney's The Lone Ranger, released the same month, had a reported P&A budget well over $150 million. By keeping their marketing spend relatively contained, the studio was already positioning the film for a stronger marketing spend ROI. The largest portion of this budget would have gone to media buying costs at the expense of purchasing airtime for TV spots on major networks and placing the movie trailer in front of other blockbuster films. With the investment defined, let's analyze the return. When a film like The Conjuring grosses $137 million domestically, that money doesn't all go back to the studio. Theatrical revenue split is a crucial factor. Theaters typically keep around 50% of the ticket sales, so from that $137 million, Warner Bros. Would have received approximately $68. $5 million on the international front, the split is often less favorable for the studio, but from the $182 million international gross, they likely collected another $80 million. The distributor, in this case Warner Bros., also charges distribution fees, typically ranging from 8% to 15% of the gross revenue, to cover their operational costs of getting the film into theaters worldwide. Now we can calculate the marketing spend ROI. Let's use conservative estimates, a total P&A budget of $40 million on top of the $20 million production budget, for a total investment of $60 million. The studio's share of the global box office was roughly $145 million. Subtracting the total investment gives a net profit of around $85 million from the theatrical run alone. Key stat. With a $40 million P&A budget generating approximately $145 million in studio revenue, the estimated marketing spend ROI is over 3.6x. This is a phenomenal return. For every single dollar the studio spent on marketing, they made more than $3.50 back in theatrical profit. This incredible efficiency can also be measured on a more granular level. One interesting metric to consider is the profit margin per screen. Given its stunning opening weekend of $41.9 million across approximately 3,000 screens, the film was a powerhouse of profitability from its very first day, a direct result of a marketing campaign that created an urgent must-see-now demand. This outstanding marketing spend ROI from the theatrical release then created a halo effect, dramatically increasing the value of the film's subsequent streaming licensing deals and home video sales, ensuring its profitability for many years to come. Fans of Insidious's genre-defining twists and The Exorcist's heart-pounding terror will find The Conjuring 2013 bridges both worlds, delivering blockbuster storytelling moments that rival franchise-level hits now streaming on Netflix, HBO Max, or Disney+. No film exists in a vacuum, and to truly understand the impact and genius of The Conjuring, we have to look at the landscape it entered and the films it now stands beside as a titan of the genre. For fans looking for similar movies or wanting to do deep franchise comparisons, this analysis is for you. We're going to break down its biggest genre rivals, its direct box office competition, and see how it stacks up against other fan favorites. When you compare with other films, the most immediate and crucial comparison is to James Wan's own 2010 hit Insidious. On the surface, they share a lot of DNA. Both are supernatural hauntings, both star Patrick Wilson, and both rely on atmospheric dread over gore. However, Insidious is a more surreal and fantastical journey into a dimension called the Further, while The Conjuring is deliberately grounded in a gritty, historical reality. Fans of the otherworldly horror of Insidious will appreciate the shared directorial style, but The Conjuring offers a more mature, classical horror experience. It's less of a wild ghost train ride and more of a slow, suffocating descent into evil, which is why many critics and fans consider it to be one of the top films in the genre. Another essential point of comparison is the undisputed champion of the possession subgenre, the 1973 masterpiece The Exorcist. For decades, every film about demonic possession has been measured against it. Conjuring doesn't try to outdo The Exorcist in terms of shock value. Instead, it pays homage to its serious, faith-based tone. Both films treat the subject of demonic evil with a chilling gravity, and both feature climactic exorcism scenes that are emotionally and physically brutal. Where The Conjuring innovates is by focusing as much on the investigators, the Warrens, as it does on the afflicted family. This dual focus gives it a unique structure that has since become the backbone of its entire franchise. In terms of franchise comparisons, the Conjuring universe has arguably achieved a level of commercial success and interconnected storytelling that even the various Exorcist sequels and prequels never managed to attain. At the time of its release, the direct box office competition for The Conjuring was the animated film Turbo and the critically panned blockbuster R.I.P.D. It completely dominated both, a rare feat for an R-rated horror film in the middle of summer. This success proved there was a massive, underserved audience for high-quality, adult-oriented horror. In the years since, its influence is undeniable, with a wave of similar movies like Hereditary, Sinister, and the works of Mike Flanagan, The Haunting of Hill House, also embracing character-driven, atmospheric terror. Yet The Conjuring remains a unique benchmark, a perfect fusion of old-school horror elegance and modern filmmaking technique that solidifies its legacy among the all-time great fan favorites. From a market analyst's perspective, launching a film is like launching a product into a competitive marketplace. You must understand the competition, assess the risks, and project your potential for success. The financial strategy behind The Conjuring was not just about making a good movie. It was about identifying a gap in the market and executing a plan to dominate it. This analysis will focus on the studio's market share projection for the film and their careful saturation risk assessment. First, let's establish the competitive landscape with a comparative revenue analysis. The most relevant ROI benchmark for The Conjuring was its spiritual predecessor, Insidious. Released in 2010, Insidious was produced for a micro-budget of just $1.5 million and grossed nearly $100 million worldwide, an incredible ROI. This proved a market existed for James Wan's brand of horror. Another key competitor in the supernatural space was the Paranormal Activity franchise. The first film was a phenomenon, made for about $15,000 and grossing over $190 million. These films established a very high genre ROI average for supernatural horror, proving that low budgets could yield astronomical returns. However, by 2013, the found footage subgenre was becoming diluted. This is where the opportunity for The Conjuring emerged. The studio's market share projection would have been based on capturing audiences who were growing tired of found footage and yearned for a more traditionally cinematic horror film. They were not just competing for the horror audience, they were competing for the audience that loved classic, well-crafted movies. Their budget versus performance analysis of the competition was key stat. While Paranormal Activity 4, 2012, grossed a strong $142 million, it was on a higher $5 million budget and saw a significant drop-off from previous installments, signaling market fatigue. This fatigue was a crucial data point. The studio likely projected that The Conjuring, with its superior production values and true story hook, could capture a significant portion of the market share that was beginning to abandon the found footage trend. Their initial market share projection might have been to aim for a gross that surpassed Insidious but stayed below the peak of the Paranormal Activity franchise, perhaps in the 200 million range. However, every market opportunity comes with a threat, which requires a thorough saturation risk assessment. The summer of 2013 was crowded with massive blockbusters. The primary risk was that a small, R-rated horror film would be completely drowned out by nine-figure tentpoles like Man of Steel and World War Z. The competitive spend comparison on marketing would have been daunting. This is the essence of a saturation risk assessment. Even if your product is good, will anyone even notice it in a crowded store? The studio mitigated this risk in two ways. First, they positioned the film as counter-programming the only serious, adult-oriented horror option in a sea of CGI action and family films. Second, their marketing was hyper-efficient, creating organic buzz that rivaled the expensive campaigns of their competitors. Ultimately, the studio's bet paid off magnificently, resulting in a phenomenal risk-adjusted ROI. The market share projection was not just met, it was wildly exceeded, with the film grossing $320 million. This Saturation risk assessment proved that by offering a high-quality, differentiated product, they could not only survive in a crowded market but thrive. The film's performance drastically outperformed the genre ROI average, delivering a return that was on par with the very best in the industry. This success was a direct result of a shrewd competitive analysis that identified a clear market opportunity and a calculated strategy to exploit it, proving that in the competitive world of the box office, a smart David can still beat a dozen Goliaths. From meme references of its most iconic scene to viral fan clips that sparked massive social media reactions, The Conjuring 2013's cultural impact rivals any competitor's pop culture influence, creating fan engagement that lives on through TikTok clips and Reddit theories. Some films are just movies, they entertain you for 2 hours and then fade from memory, but a select few transcend the screen. They become part of our cultural conversation, a source of memes, inside jokes, and endless debate. The Conjuring is one of those films. Its footprint on popular culture is deep and lasting, built on a foundation of genuine terror that inspired a wave of fan-driven content and cemented its status as a modern classic. The epicenter of The Conjuring's pop culture influence is, without a doubt, the hide-and-clap scene. This single, terrifying sequence became one of the most significant viral moments in modern horror history. Immediately following the film's release, the internet was flooded with viral fan clips of audience fan reactions, parodies, and homages. The simple, rhythmic clap-clap became a universal symbol of the film's horror. This led to a tsunami of meme references, with the image of the ghostly hands appearing in countless memes across all social media platforms. Even today, a decade later, you'll still see this scene referenced in new TikTok clips, a testament to its incredible staying power. This is the kind of organic internet trend that marketing departments dream of, and it was all driven by the raw, visceral fear the scene created. Beyond the memes, the film sparked a huge amount of online discussion and investigation. Forums and subreddits are filled with sprawling Reddit theories connecting the dots of the expanding Conjuring universe. Fans dissect every frame, searching for Easter eggs and clues about future installments. One of the most significant Easter eggs, of course, was the prominent placement of the Annabelle doll, which directly telegraphed the studio's franchise ambitions and ignited countless fan discussions about which cursed object would be next. Based on a true story element also fueled this fire, with amateur sleuths and paranormal enthusiasts creating endless content debating the real-life cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren. These deep dives and Reddit theories create a rich, interactive experience for fans that extends far beyond a single viewing of the movie. Finally, the film has left us with some fantastic fun facts and cultural references. Great piece of trivia is that the real Lorraine Warren has a small cameo in the film, sitting in the audience during the Warrens' university lecture scene. Another, one of the most repeated fun facts, is that the actual Perron family visited the set during filming and reportedly experienced some unsettling phenomena. These little nuggets of information add to the film's mystique and are the kind of shareable content that fuels social media reactions. From its unforgettable, iconic moments to its endlessly quotable fan quotes, the legacy of The Conjuring is not just in its box office numbers, but in the indelible mark it left on the landscape of popular culture. From a cultural perspective, viral buzz is a sign of a beloved film. From a financial perspective, it is a powerful, quantifiable, and incredibly valuable asset. The cultural impact of The Conjuring wasn't just a happy accident. It was a massive, unpaid marketing campaign that can be analyzed and valued. This is where we look at the direct monetary return of organic engagement, focusing on two core themes: the immediate viral marketing ROI and the long-term CPM uplift from engagement. Let's start with the concept of viral marketing ROI. When the hide-and-clap scene became a meme, it generated hundreds of millions, if not billions, of unpaid impressions across social media. Each share, each reaction video, each parody was, in effect, a free advertisement for the film. A digital marketing strategist can calculate the earned media value of this phenomenon. If the studio had to pay for that level of reach through traditional ads, the cost would be astronomical. Key stat: a successful viral marketing campaign, like the one sparked by The Conjuring's iconic scene, can lower a film's paid media costs by an estimated 20–30%, representing millions of dollars in savings on the P&A budget. This is the essence of viral marketing ROI, achieving a massive marketing impact for a fraction of the cost. This direct revenue boost from cultural traction is seen in stronger-than-projected ticket sales, as the viral buzz creates an urgent need for people to be part of the cultural conversation. This brings us to our second theme, the CPM uplift from engagement. CPM, or cost per mil, is the price an advertiser pays for 1,000 views or impressions of an ad. Platforms like YouTube and TikTok have higher CPM rates for content that is highly engaging, lots of likes, comments, shares. When official content from The Conjuring, like trailers or clips and related fan content, go viral, the entire ecosystem around the film becomes more valuable to advertisers. This CPM uplift from engagement means that the ad revenue generated by the film's official YouTube channel, and even by fan creators discussing the film, increases. It's a powerful feedback loop. High engagement makes the content more valuable, which attracts more advertisers, which generates more revenue. This is a clear example of engagement-driven revenue, where the passion of the fan base is directly monetized through advertising partnerships. Furthermore, a strong cultural footprint dramatically increases a property's brand partnership value. When a film is a constant part of the cultural conversation, other brands want to be associated with it. This opens the door for lucrative collaborations, from fast food tie-ins to limited edition clothing lines. A culturally dominant film can command a brand partnership value estimated at $1 million to $5 million for a major collaboration. Powerful cultural brand also commands a significant IP licensing premium. When a character like Annabelle becomes a horror icon through memes and viral moments, the fee that toy companies are willing to pay for the license to produce that doll goes up significantly. This IP licensing premium applies across all merchandise categories, from video games to theme park attractions, ensuring that the studio maximizes the revenue from its intellectual property. The ability to successfully engage in trending monetization, or the act of quickly capitalizing on a viral moment, is a hallmark of a savvy, modern studio. In every sense, the cultural impact of The Conjuring was not just a creative success. It was a financial multiplier that amplified the value of every aspect of the franchise. From nominations for its outstanding filmmaking to wins at major genre awards that sparked massive awards buzz, The Conjuring 2013 as critical acclaim rivals any competitor's film festival highlights, earning a stellar Rotten Tomatoes score and glowing audience ratings across all streaming platforms. For many films, especially in the horror genre, commercial success and critical respect are two very different things. It's rare for a movie to dominate the box office while also winning over the toughest of critic reviews. But The Conjuring was that rare exception. It wasn't just a hit, it was a critical darling, a film that was recognized for its masterful craftsmanship, its powerful performances, and its undeniable effectiveness as a piece of pure terror. This acclaim cemented its status as one of the top-rated movies of the decade and a must-watch film for any serious movie lover. Let's start with the most famous metric of all, the Rotten Tomatoes score. The Conjuring currently holds a fantastic 86% certified fresh rating from critics. This is an exceptionally high score for a mainstream horror film, a genre that critics are often notoriously tough on. The consensus praised James Wan's direction as a frighteningly effective old-school horror film and celebrated its reliance on atmosphere and tension over cheap gore. This stellar critical reception was mirrored by the audience scores. The film boasts an equally impressive 83% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7/5/10 on IMDb, indicating that both critics and general audiences were in perfect agreement. These glowing audience ratings are a huge reason why the film continues to have such a long and healthy life on streaming, as new viewers are drawn in by its universally positive reputation. Positive critic reviews translated directly into significant awards buzz. While major awards bodies like the Oscars and Golden Globes have a historical bias against the horror genre, The Conjuring was a dominant force in the awards that matter most to genre fans. It won the prestigious Saturn Award for Best Horror Film, beating out major competition. It also took home the Critics' Choice Movie Award for Best Sci-Fi/Horror Movie and the Empire Award for Best Horror. These wins weren't just trophies for the shelf. They were a powerful endorsement, a signal to the broader film community that The Conjuring was a serious piece of filmmaking that deserved to be recognized for its artistic merit. The film's success at these festivals and awards shows created a powerful narrative around its quality. Even though it didn't receive any major Oscars nominations or Golden Globe wins, the conversation around the film was significant. Many critics argued that the performances, particularly from Vera Farmiga and Lily Taylor, were worthy of award-winning performances recognition. This debate and the widespread awards buzz further elevated the film's profile. The legacy of its acclaim is that The Conjuring helped to usher in a new era of prestige horror, paving the way for other critically celebrated horror films like Get Out and Hereditary to receive serious awards consideration. It proved that a horror film could be both a commercial juggernaut and a work of art, a rare achievement that solidifies its place in cinema history. From a creative's perspective, an award is a validation of their art. From an investor's perspective, an award is a powerful financial instrument. The critical acclaim and awards recognition that The Conjuring received were not just cultural victories. They were significant financial events that amplified the film's profitability and long-term value. This is where we analyze how glowing reviews and trophies translate directly into dollars and cents, focusing on two core financial concepts: the immediate ROI multiplier of an award win, and the long-term critical acclaim multiplier that enhances the value of the intellectual property for years to come. First, let's consider the investment required to chase these accolades. Studios don't just wait for awards to happen, they campaign for them. A major award campaign cost for a film vying for top honors at the Oscars can be substantial, often ranging from an estimated $5 million to over $15 million. This budget covers everything from special screenings for voters to targeted advertising in trade publications. For a genre film like The Conjuring, the award campaign cost would have been much more modest and targeted, likely under $1 million, focusing on genre-specific awards like the Saturn Awards. The goal here is to achieve a high return on that specific, smaller investment. When a film receives a major nomination or win, it often triggers a significant post-award revenue boost. Historically, a film that wins Best Picture at the Oscars can see an estimated box office bump of $20 million to $50 million in additional domestic revenue. While the effect is smaller for genre awards, the principle is the same. Winning Best Horror Film acts as a powerful marketing tool. It becomes a key part of the advertising campaign for the home video release and streaming run, signaling quality to audiences who might have missed it in theaters. This is the ROI multiplier in action. The initial investment in the film's production and marketing is magnified by the award win, which drives new viewers and additional sales. The relatively small award campaign cost generates a disproportionately large return in the form of this award-driven revenue. Beyond the immediate box office bump, the long-term value is enhanced by what we'll call the critical acclaim multiplier. This is a broader, more sustained financial benefit. Strong reviews and awards act as a permanent seal of quality that increases the asset's value across all future revenue streams. One key area this impacts is prestige pricing. When a studio is negotiating streaming licensing deals, a certified fresh score and a shelf full of awards are powerful bargaining chips. A critically acclaimed film can command a significantly higher licensing fee than a poorly reviewed film with the same box office numbers. This prestige pricing applies to international distribution rights and television broadcast rights as well. The critical acclaim multiplier ensures that the film is not just a commodity, but a premium product. This multiplier effect is especially potent in the world of streaming monetization. A critically acclaimed film has a much longer shelf life on a streaming platform. It becomes an evergreen title that the service can promote for years to attract and retain subscribers. This leads to a significant streaming royalty bump over the lifetime of the licensing agreement. Key stat: critically acclaimed library titles often see a 15–20% higher rate of engagement on streaming services compared to poorly reviewed films, making them more valuable assets to the platform. The ROI multiplier from an award might be a short-term boost, but the critical acclaim multiplier is a force that continuously enhances the film's lifetime value, LTV, ensuring that the initial investment continues to generate returns for decades. For The Conjuring, its stellar reputation is a financial gift that keeps on giving. As The Conjuring 2013 cements its film legacy with franchise potential that rivals any competitor's universe expansion, fans speculate on sequels and spin-off ideas, while the director's next projects and upcoming movies hint at a thrilling future. We've reached the end of our deep dive, and now it's time to look at the lasting impact and the exciting future of the world that this incredible film built. The film legacy of The Conjuring is twofold. First, it stands on its own as a masterwork of the horror genre, a perfectly crafted and terrifying film that redefined what mainstream horror could be. Second, and perhaps more significantly, it served as the Big Bang for one of the most successful cinematic universes in modern history. Cinematic impact is not just in the story it told, but in the dozens of stories it made possible. The franchise potential was baked into the DNA of The Conjuring from its very first scene. The introduction of the Annabelle doll and the tantalizing glimpse of the Warrens' artifact room was a deliberate and brilliant act of world building. This wasn't just a movie, it was a pilot episode for an entire universe. This led to a clear and effective franchise roadmap. The main sequels would follow the core cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren, while the spin-off ideas would explore the dark origins of the cursed objects and entities they encountered. This model of universe expansion has been incredibly successful, allowing the studio to release new installments almost annually, keeping fan anticipation at a constant high. This clear roadmap has fueled endless fan speculation about upcoming movies and rumored plotlines. Fans constantly debate which case from the Warrens' real-life files will be adapted next for a main series sequel. We see the Smurl haunting, the Southend werewolf. The possibilities are nearly endless. The same goes for spin-off ideas. With an entire room full of cursed artifacts, the potential for new demonic villains and standalone stories is immense. This constant churn of rumored plotlines and fan theories keeps the franchise alive and relevant in between releases, a testament to the rich world that The Conjuring created. Beyond the franchise itself, the film legacy of The Conjuring is also tied to the careers it launched into the stratosphere. It cemented James Wan's status as one of the most important directors of his generation. After the massive success of this film, he went on to direct blockbuster behemoths like Furious 7 and Aquaman, becoming one of the most bankable filmmakers in the world. Fans are always eagerly awaiting news of the director's next projects, whether he is producing a new entry in the universe he created or directing another massive tentpole. The cinematic impact of The Conjuring is a ripple effect. It elevated the horror genre, created a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and solidified the career of a visionary director, ensuring its influence will be felt for generations of filmmakers and movie lovers to come. We now arrive at the final tally, the ultimate financial summary of this remarkable asset. Having analyzed every facet of its creation and reception, we can now conduct a final cumulative yield analysis and project the long-term financial future of the intellectual property that began with a modest $20 million film. The story of The Conjuring from an investment perspective is one of a perfectly executed high-growth venture, where a single, successful seed investment was leveraged through a series of powerful ROI multiplier events to create a billion-dollar brand. First, let's project the long-term franchise ROI. The original film had an ROI of over 16x its production budget. However, a franchise's total ROI includes every sequel, spin-off, and piece of merchandise. The Conjuring universe has already grossed over $2.3 billion at the global box office. The total production cost for all the films in the universe is estimated to be around $200 million. Even before accounting for marketing, home video, and merchandise, that represents a franchise-wide ROI of over 11x. Projecting over the next decade, with at least a few more planned installments, it is reasonable to estimate that the long-term franchise ROI for this entire endeavor could easily reach 15x to 20x the total invested capital, a figure that rivals the performance of top-tier franchises like the early Marvel films or Fast and Furious. This incredible return is a testament to the power of the initial film's success, acting as an ROI multiplier for every subsequent project. This leads us to an estimation of the total IP lifecycle value. The intellectual property of the Conjuring universe is now a blue-chip asset for Warner Bros. Discovery. Its value extends far beyond the box office. We must factor in global streaming rights, television syndication, merchandise, video games, and even live attractions. Considering the consistent box office performance, the proven demand for spin-offs, and the evergreen nature of the horror genre, a conservative estimate for the total IP lifecycle value of the Conjuring franchise would be in the range of $1.5 billion to $3 billion. This figure represents the total potential earnings the IP could generate over its entire lifespan. Key stat: a top-tier multi-billion-dollar franchise like The Conjuring contributes significantly to a studio's valuation, often being cited as a key asset in shareholder reports and investor calls. The entire journey from a single film to a multi-billion-dollar asset is a perfect illustration of successful franchise lifecycle profitability. However, the future is not without risk. We must also consider the sequel investment risk. With each new installment, the budgets tend to increase. The Conjuring 2 had a budget of $40 million, double that of the original. This increased investment raises the bar for profitability. There is also the risk of audience fatigue. If the quality of the films declines or the stories become repetitive, the box office returns will diminish and the ROI multiplier effect will weaken. The studio must carefully manage the brand and ensure that each new entry maintains the high standard of quality that fans expect. This is the central challenge of managing a long-running franchise. Balancing the desire to capitalize on a successful IP with the need to protect it from overexposure and creative decline. The ultimate cumulative yield analysis shows that the initial investment in The Conjuring was not just a bet on one film. It was a down payment on a financial empire. Each successful sequel and spin-off has acted as a powerful ROI multiplier, building upon the last, creating a cascade of revenue that has transformed a simple horror movie into one of the most valuable and enduring modern franchises in cinematic history.
If you survived this financial autopsy, slash that like button and subscribe to Profit in Frames for more dissections of the horror genre's most profitable monsters. What scary movie should we put on the operating table next? Let us know your victim in the comments below.